My name is Lauren.
And I'm Kai.
And welcome to the Theoretical YouTube channel and the 5th annual Theoretical Oscar ceremony. I think 5th is right.
Yeah.
Oh, my microphone fell down. It's fine.
Is this really the 5th one?
I believe so. It's the 2024 one.
Channel started in 2017.
But we didn't do one the first year.
Yeah.
I think 5th is right. I think I've been writing 5th on different advertising
Okay,
amounts.
well... So if you don't know what the Theoretical Oscars are, it is essentially our Oscar ceremony where we highlight a lot of the categories that don't actually get put into the real Oscars, and we highlight some of the films and TV shows that just don't get the credit in the real, technical ceremonies.
Exactly, right. For instance, stunt work. I feel like there's somewhat of a movement in Hollywood to get stunts actually recognized as an official Oscars category, but for now, we honor it here, as well as silly categories that don't actually matter.
Yeah, if you are watching this video, then you missed it, but in the weeks prior to this, we were taking polls on the YouTube channel through community posts. We had a survey out, and Twitter, I think?
We tried Twitter, but literally no one voted in any of the polls.
Because no one follows us on Twitter, which you could change.
At theory_central.
Yep. So, I mean, if you missed it, then there's always next year, but we've got all the votes tallied for this year, and this is the official ceremony for all of the winners of the Theoretical Oscars 2024.
Yes, and this is as accurate as I possibly could be. I just took the tallies like 20 minutes ago. So let's get started with our very first category of the best stunt work. Let me scroll back up to my document. Your nominees were John Wick Chapter 4, Godzilla -1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. What did you think about these different nominees this year? I hadn't seen all of these movies, but
yeah,
I mean, it was a pretty good year for stunts.
Yeah, I mean, any year that has a Mission Impossible film, I think, is
a Mission Impossible and a John Wick.
Yeah, automatically a good year for action movies. Mission Impossible specifically for stunts. And was this the John Wick? I haven't seen the John Wick 4, right? Is this the one where he falls down a set of stairs for like 2 minutes straight?
I believe it is.
Great year for stunt work.
Absolutely. Do you have any guesses on what people voted for? There's a difference between the survey and the YouTube community. So it's not a significant difference. And this is also the category that got twice as many votes as any other category. So people are pretty passionate about stunts.
Nice. I'd say probably just because Tom Cruise continues to attempt to push the envelope as far into space as possible until he gets there. I think Mission Impossible is probably the most impressive stunts of this year. But there were a lot of other great ones, and I'm actually kind of surprised that there was a discrepancy between the two polls.
Yeah, no, that was interesting to me too. I voted for Mission Impossible, mostly because of the train sequence, but building the whole railroad and entire train just to crash it into a canyon. Yeah, that's why I personally voted for it. But apparently the YouTube community disagreed because with a 47% majority or plurality or whatever it's called, John Wick Chapter 4 is the winner of the best stunt category, followed up by Mission Impossible with 26%. So YouTube definitely had a preference, and it swung really hard towards John Wick, whereas Mission Impossible was our survey winner.
Really? Maybe it's because it was more popular.
Probably. I think that might be a theme as we get further into the document.
Yeah. We don't have the benefit. We are a popular vote system. We don't have the benefit that the Academy has of people who try to make unbiased opinions.
I thought about weighting the survey results to make them have more sway, but I did not do that. Maybe next year. Our next category was the worst Bechdel fail, which is a category that I'm like, oh, we don't need to do that this year. Or like, the joke's really old. Like we've done it 5 times now. I think we can retire this. But every year I'm surprised by movies that don't pass the Bechdel test. And so we'll keep adding it until there's a year where it's not surprising or there's no good
Yeah,
comedy to be had at all.
the bit is getting old. But I mean, they keep coming out with movies that fail. And if you don't know how you fail the Bechdel test, it's essentially like just a test to see how male centered a piece of media is. It's easy to pass the test. You just have to have two women in your story talk to each other about anything that is not a man or a baby.
That's it. I think that women have to have names, but otherwise,
Oh
that's
yeah,
it.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, and yet, what do we have? 5 or 6 pretty good films this year that still failed to pass the test.
I managed to fit 5 on this survey because we can't
Yeah,
add too many or else we tap out. But anyway, the nominees were Five Nights at Freddy's, The Flash, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Oppenheimer, and the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Uh, the only one that I was like, oh yeah, that like really surprises me was the Mario movie. I like.
yeah. I mean,
I
there's
mean,
not very
I
many
guess.
characters
Yeah,
in
and I guess
it.
if you don't have Daisy in the film.
Yeah, like, but I mean, Mario does have a lot of men in its franchise, so
Right.
it makes sense that a movie based on it wouldn't have very many women in it. But Peach is a main character and doesn't really get to interact with too many other women in the movie. I guess maybe there's a bunch of toads. Yeah, the Mario movie is surprising. I think Oppenheimer is the other one where it's like, huh, that's like that was one of the like biggest films this year, and the fact that it failed the Bechdel test is like it certainly makes sense. It's a movie about scientists in the 40s and then politicians in the like 60s, so
Mhm.
um, there's not a lot of women in there, but yeah, a really big, pretty good movie. Still failing the Bechdel test. It never stops.
So the winner of this category was another YouTube swing because with I believe 33% of the vote, it was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, followed up by Oppenheimer with 25. That was the survey winner. Um, yeah, so Indiana Jones, that was another one that kind of surprised me, but not really because the full franchise has sort of a history with female representation and the way that women are depicted in the franchise. So, uh, it's not entirely surprising to me, but also it was 2023 and one of the larger media properties that is circulating right now.
Yeah, for what it is, I feel like Phoebe Waller Bridges, is that her name?
Yeah, Phoebe
Bridge,
Waller
something.
Bridge. Hmm.
Bridge. Yeah. Thought she was great. She was probably my favorite part of the movie. Didn't have any other women to talk to. Kind of sucks. Uh, and the category has always been the most disappointing fail, not like the one
Hmm.
that is the most surprising or the one that is the most unsurprising. So it does make sense that a movie like the others seemed like to make a Mario movie not fail the Bechdel test. I mean, include Daisy, but if they didn't want to go in that direction, there really wasn't any way to fit it in there. Indiana
Hmm.
Jones really feels like you. It's a whole. It's like 10 years after the previous one anyway. So like introduce some new characters. I think it definitely was the most disappointing Bechdel fell this year.
Yeah, makes sense. Deserves the title. Maybe next year we will retire the category, like we've been
Maybe.
saying for 3 years in a row. Our next category was the best advertising campaign. The nominees were Cocaine Bear, Five Nights at Freddy's, and Barbenheimer. This one has a very clear winner, but we can talk
Yeah, I
about
think
the
it's
other
obvious.
ones.
Um, this year was a really good year for advertising campaigns. Don't you agree?
I do. I think Cocaine Bear. was definitely like had a lot of like viral marketing earlier in the year. Obviously some stuff happened later in the year that went significantly more viral, but I think the trailers for Cocaine Bear were a highlight of that film. I haven't actually seen it, but I know a lot of people who were really excited about it.
Yeah,
And that's why I think it was a success for the advertising. And then Five Nights at Freddy's like definitely had like its sphere correct, where it was heavily leaning towards online presence, and getting people who are involved in talking about Five Nights at Freddy's already involved in marketing for the film, and so it played its cards really well, and then very successfully. It had big box office returns, uh,
yeah.
so I think it did a really good job.
Five Nights at Freddy's is also a film that's been being talked about for like 5 years now. So
Hmm.
just the fact that it was coming out had a lot of people talking online, and they played into that, getting a bunch of the YouTube creators that made the game what it is, getting them to star in the film and advertise for the film and all that stuff. So I think they had a good marketing strategy this year as well.
Hmm.
But I don't think anything compares to the elephant in the room, the pink elephant on parade. Um, if you will, Barbenheimer.
And I don't know how much of the Barbenheimer zeitgeist was intentional from Warner Brothers or the
Yes.
different studios. I don't actually know who made Oppenheimer. But like I don't know how much of it was deliberately planned, pretending to be authentic marketing just from the people, or how much of it was a joke.
If it was like dreamed up in some like back room at Warner Brothers, and they're like, we're gonna team up with the Oppenheimer like team and make this like movie, like this amalgamation of two movies a thing for the entirety of this summer, then amazing props to them. They did their job perfectly. I don't think that happened though. I think it was probably people saw that it was coming out in the same weekend. It became a meme, and then like they were really quick to go like, "Oh yes, we're gonna use this because it's already viral. We could just make it as big as possible."
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great because they're so contrasting thematically
Yeah,
and aesthetically, especially.
yeah, like the black and white, like brooding nuclear war, like fearful Oppenheimer, Barbie, which ended up being a much more like thought-provoking film than I think anyone expected anyway. But
Hmm.
it's Barbie compared to Oppenheimer. It's a perfect combination.
Absolutely. The internet agreed. You guys voted with a 75% winner, Barbenheimer, as the best advertising campaign from last year. And I agree. I really don't think there's any contest. The next category is the other side of the coin, the worst advertising campaign. The nominees were Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Amongst Thieves, Elemental, Transformers, Rise of the Beasts, and Wonka. We should maybe explain each of these. Wonka, I think, is our poster child for like movies that were advertised as not musicals this year, despite being musicals. Uh, there were three, sort of. There was Mean Girls, which just technically came out in January, so it wasn't eligible for this category. But I think towards the end of their marketing, and also if you're a fan of Broadway, you already knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And then The Color Purple as well. I think the later trailers played into the musical themes more. But I'm not sure I ever saw a single trailer from Wonka that had music in it or singing.
I mean, I haven't seen Wonka, so I learned 5 seconds ago that it was a musical.
You just didn't like
More
the
musical
trailers in
than
general? Yeah, no, full
more.
it's a full musical.
Okay, like not just Oompa Loompas, like everyone sings.
Yep,
Cool. Yeah.
lovely.
What else?
Transformers, just kind
Uh,
of generic Transformers trailers. I don't know. I
yeah.
it's kind of weird to do the Beast Wars stuff with like
It's.
the Michael Bay aesthetic. It's strange. And also, I'm assuming not very successful because I don't know a single person who saw that movie.
I saw people before the movie come out say, "Yo, they're doing a Beast Wars like Michael Bay Transformers. I'm so excited." And I haven't heard anything since. So I don't know how successful it really was.
Uh, Elemental was the Pixar film that came out last year, and the trailers were terrible. And I don't know if you've seen the movie, but it does not represent the movie that Pixar created at all. Yeah, no, I just that was my personal vote for the worst campaign just because the trailers did not represent the, I think, heart and depth of the story. It was just very like surface level. Look at all the cool scenery that we built and like let's
Yeah.
highlight our worst jokes.
Even though the world of Elemental isn't the best part of Elemental.
No, not at
It's
all.
like the world is very simple. Like if you think the movie like so Zootopia, where the world is what if humans never exist and it's all animals. The world is like a main part of the movie. Elemental looks like it's trying to do the same thing, but the things you can do in the world of Elemental are so much less impressive than with things like Zootopia. It's like, ooh, they play cloud sports. Like it's the story, the character driven story is like just it's so much more impactful than any of the cool ideas that they come up with for how a world made of or consisting of people made of just the four elements would work.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they leaned heavily into that, and it was not what the movie was.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're going to have to explain to folks the Dungeons and Dragons stuff cuz the trailers were
Oh,
fine. I don't have any problem with the trailers and I saw the movie. It was good. I liked it. Um but what was the drama?
so this one is certainly way more niche than just a bad advertising campaign. This one was I'm not exactly certain. I didn't do too much research into it, but I think Hasbro has recently acquired Wizards of the Coast, or maybe they just realized that it's the most profitable thing they have,
Hmm.
and they've completely shifted what they're trying to do with D&D. If you didn't know, Wizards of the Coast is the like sub company that makes D&D and Magic and other stuff like that. Um, and they D&D is by far the most profitable thing that Hasbro owns, and they just recently have tried to capitalize that on in ways that they haven't before. And it all kind of came to a head when there was a new like clause or something in the like copyright law for their new version of D&D that they're releasing soon, where it said that essentially you were not allowed to use the rules of D&D or like any of the things that D&D provides you to create your own content, whereas the exact opposite was said in the D&D 5th edition rules, which is the one that has really made D&D explode in the past few years. It's Critical Role, Dimension 20, all those things run on 5th edition D&D. And one of the main reasons they're able to exist is because of this one clause in the 5th edition like copyright law that says that you're allowed to not only use the rule sets and like the worlds in D&D for your own content, but you're allowed to release your own books that augment the rules or like create more rules on top of them
Mm,
to make the
mhm.
games better, and you're able to sell those. Now they took that out, which a lot of people justifiably got mad at because it's the only reason D&D is Hasbro's most profitable product, uh, and it's just scummy.
Yeah, and this happened to be coinciding with the release of the Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah,
movie.
which is another. Oh, D&D is our most profitable thing. Let's make a movie about it because the last movie was 20 years ago and really bad. If you didn't know, it exists. It's very clear that Hasbro has been pushing D&D a little bit in the past few years. And the two things people are like, oh, an actually good D&D movie, that's great. But then in the background, it's like, oh, they're also trying to take money from the creators that have made their products popular. And there was a bunch of people boycotting the D&D movie for that reason.
And you don't really want people boycotting your movie right as it's coming out.
Yeah, so not quite a bad advertising campaign, more of just company doing scummy company things at the same time your movie's coming out.
Yeah, I don't think Hasbro's really hurting this year though. I think they're fine.
Uh, I mean, they don't own Barbie. That's Mattel, right? So
Oh, you are correct. I got that mixed up for a second.
Hasbro does have competition in the movie market, doing like way more successful than them.
Excellent. All right. Well, the winner for this category was Elemental with about 40% of the vote, followed pretty closely by Wonka with 31. So that was kind of tight right up into the last couple of days of voting. And I think I agree with that. Elemental was my least favorite.
Yeah, it was certainly mine too. I think people found like the Wonka trailers cringy as well, like
Yes.
as
Yeah.
not promoting the fact that it's a musical. I think there was a lot of memes going around saying like, "Why does this exist? What is happening? Like why is there a Wonka movie coming out and I've never heard of it?" But Elemental was definitely my most disappointing advertising campaign this year. Uh, Also, partly because it just seems like a theme recently with
Yeah.
Disney and Pixar films, them just not promoting them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was sort of, I cast that vote as like pretty much like for this as well as Strange World and Encanto, all the movies that Disney has released recently that just haven't been advertised.
Yeah, they advertised Wish, but I kind of wish they didn't, or at least had gotten a little further in their animation process before that first teaser trailer.
You say you don't like it. I thought it was fine.
Okay. The next category was our most hyped moment or hype moment. We have a disagreement on what this category actually means, but our nominees this year were Miles Spider Society Escape, The Loki World Tree, and I'm Just Ken. So, the two ways to interpret hype. I think the most hyped moment is what the internet has kind of like rallied behind is like, that was super cool, or like, this is the iconic like scene or moment or meme or joke from a movie. Whereas you think,
Yeah, my definition, well, so it's a very slight change. It's Lauren adds a D to the end of the word.
mm-hmm.
I say it's the most hype moment. Lauren says it's the most hyped moment. And what I feel like the category is the moment that like gave you goosebumps in the theater. It's the moment that filled you with hype at the moment, which very often relates to Lauren's definition, where afterwards they go on the internet and say, "Whoa, this is super cool," and it becomes hyped after that. But there is a very slight discrepancy in the two, which is actually apparent in the nominees this year.
Yes, I believe so. I'm going to say the winners and then we can talk about them. This was another one where YouTube almost swung the vote, but the survey was so overwhelmingly in favor of one that it actually didn't matter. So the winner with 59% of the vote was Miles Spider Society Escape. And out of like I don't know the exact percentage of what the survey was, but it was almost every vote in the survey was for that. Whereas YouTube was really wanting I'm Just Ken.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. YouTube is a much more meme centered, internet eyes psyche. And I think I'm Just Ken certainly won in that category. But apparently, the people in the survey thought the Miles's Spider Society Escape was more hype, which actually plays into the difference in our two ideas of what the category means quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think I voted for this Across the Spider Verse one, even though it goes against my definition, just because it was so excellent and epic. But if I were to think of like the moment that actually filled me with the most hype, honestly, the Loki World Tree was really cool.
Yeah. how do you know how many votes it got? With the
Not very many
59%
at
winning,
all.
yeah.
I think it got no, it got 2 votes on the survey. I'm just kidding, only got 1 vote. And then I think it got 0 on the YouTube survey.
Wow. Yeah, that sucks because while watching Loki, that was definitely a super cool moment. It just kept building and building into
Mhm.
what it was in the end. And I think it was the perfect like ending for Loki's character. That like at the end of that, I remember just like being in awe. I don't even know what the next scene was because I was just like, wow,
I don't either.
yeah.
Maybe
Um,
something on Earth.
Probably. The Spider Society escape was also a really cool moment. For me, I felt like the Spider Society escape wasn't actually the like coolest part of the Spider Society escape. I think it's how like the escape itself is a cool chase scene, and it
Mhm.
ends in a really cool way where he tricks them all to go up there. He shocks
Yep.
2099 and jumps off a train, which is a moon train, which is
Mhm.
super cool. But then he goes and he sneaks into the Chekhov's creepy spider thing that sends you back to your dimension.
Yeah.
And then he gets sent back to his dimension, but it's not his dimension. And like the whole thing is captivating for like a solid 20 minutes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that was it's the coolest part of the movie. And it's why I love the ending of the movie, even though a lot of people are disappointed by the cliffhanger. I feel like the
Mhm.
ending was really good. Um,
Yeah, I've never been in a theater before that literally as soon as the credits rolled, everyone shouted no.
yeah, because
I've
it's
never had that happen before.
yeah, well, because the last like third of the film or a quarter of the film, you're like on the edge of your seat wondering what's
Mhm.
happening next, and
Mhm.
then when apparently what's happening next is you're waiting a year for the next one to come out. That's disappointing. More than a year now because actor
It's
strikes.
disappointing in the best way.
Yeah,
The next category is a new category that we have been talking about doing for years and finally like took notes and made it happen, which is the best credit sequence. The nominees were Barbie, Loki, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and Wish. I liked all of these. I liked some more, but I really thought it was a great year for credit sequences.
yeah. This is a complicated category to include in our list because you never really know in the when looking at the coming year whether any of the credits are going to be good or not. Because whether a credit sequence is good has nothing to do with whether the movie is good.
Exactly.
Oftentimes they align, but credit sequences could just be cool or boring, and it has nothing to do with the actual movie. So I'm super glad that we had a lot of good movies this year and really good credit sequences this year.
Yeah, and all of these are so different from each other. So I think the Barbie one is maybe one of your most classic because it's a very like poppy pop art style that did like vintage toys, and so it was a lot of like historical like photographs of the toy throughout the ages, which was really cool to see. And then plus it had the oh gosh, who did the I don't remember who did the music, but that like Barbie rendition that was really popular on the internet for a while. Um and then the Loki season 2 credits. I mean, I like the Loki season 1 credits and this was just like an updated version of
It's
that.
just updated with like the TVA handbook and a few other like pieces of symbolism, and that's why I liked the Loki season one and now season two credits because of they just so it begins the first episode's credits are a bunch of Easter eggs for what's gonna come, and then you see those things and you go, where have I seen that before? Oh, it's in the credits, and you're like, oh yeah, maybe I should watch the credits in the future.
Mhm, and Natalie Holt's score for that is so good. It's so beautiful with the, like, the theremin sound
Yeah,
effects and, it's fantastic. And then, like, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse credits is, like, a short film done, like,
yeah.
in, like, impressionistic art fo like, if you haven't seen it, just search that right now. You don't have to finish watching the rest of the ceremony. Just watch the Across the Spider-Verse credits because they are gorgeous. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, and it's fitting for such a beautiful movie as well.
Mhm, mhm. And then Wish was probably the simplest, It was like so simple and so effective. It was like 100 years of Disney, and so we're just gonna do a black backed scroll with all the words going up, and on the sides there's just a character from every single movie.
Yep. It pays tribute to not quite every movie, but pretty much like 95% of Disney animated releases for the past 100 years. Um, and I feel like that's exactly what the movie was going for. The movie itself,
Mhm.
going back to marketing, was marketed as 100 years in the making and stuff like that. And the movie itself was very like history of Disney, like I don't know, like what is it, love song, whatever.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a love song to Disney, made by Disney. Obama placing the Medal of Honor on himself meme right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the credits played into that perfectly, and it was so simple. It wasn't over the top, and
Mhm.
I loved those credits as well.
Yeah. I believe this one was kind of close. Not super close, but with, let's see, 42% of the vote, it was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, followed by Barbie with 30%. So, another like 10% difference. Um but honestly, I would have been fine if any of these won. They
Yeah,
were
no,
they
they were
were
all
all
fantastic.
really good. Yeah, so I liked that category a lot, and I'm taking notes when I go to movie theaters for this year, and I'm just writing down what the credit sequence is were, because sometimes it's so hard when we're putting the nomination lists together to be like, what was that?
And if you just write a few words down, and then like 6 months later you look at those words, and then you can remember what the credits are, I think that tells you it was a good credit sequence.
Oh yeah. The next category is one that we've been doing since the beginning and is not as fun and kind of exists so that we can make fun of the state of Hollywood. And that is the worst sequel or adaptation. The nominees this year were Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, Haunted Mansion, and The Little Mermaid. I am now realizing I've seen all of these.
Have you?
I've seen every single one of these. And I'm worse off for it.
This category is very disappointing every year, looking back at how many sequels and adaptations have been made, and how much of a trend it is for them to be bad. You can
Mhm.
pretty much rely on nearly every adaptation of a property that's already established to be bad in Hollywood recently, and that just sucks. But we can laugh about it here while we make fun of them. So,
Absolutely. I mean, did you have a particular least favorite out of these?
um, so I haven't seen them all. I've seen Ant Man the Wasp. I've seen Aquaman. We watched that in theaters. That was an experience. Um,
Especially not having seen the first Aquaman. I've only seen Aquaman 2.
uh, I don't think I have a particular least favorite. Out of the ones I saw, it was probably Aquaman. Um, because the other one, Ant Man the Wasp, got a lot of hate, but it wasn't actually a horrible movie in my opinion. Do you
Mhm.
agree?
I think it
Like
was
it
just
was
kind of
like a
subpar,
middle of the
like.
road 5 out of 10 movie. Like, but I think people
Mhm.
just expect more from Marvel, that people are judging it more harshly. But yeah, I don't think it was actually like a bad movie. It was certainly um, okay.
Yeah.
But the internet has to hate things. We throw it a sacrificial lamb every once in a while, and that's how we keep the thing going.
Yeah, for me, I think the one I was most disappointed by was the Haunted Mansion. Because that was one that like the trailers made it look really good, and so I was confused why it was coming out in July instead of October. And it's like, oh, I guess they're just waiting for like to do it on Disney Plus in October, which means they have to get it out of the way, which means, oh, it's not something they super want to play in theaters and have a bunch of people flock to. Um, and then you watch it, and it's like, this is not the worst thing I've ever seen, but I don't know. Personally, my Haunted Mansion is one of my favorite rides at Disneyland or Disney World. So I was just very disappointed in the execution after the trailers made me very excited for it.
Yeah. I think a bad Haunted Mansion is particularly disappointing because we've had a Haunted Mansion in the past that wasn't amazing. I mean, it was a fine movie. But we've had one in the past, and this was kind of like a redo. And the fact that it's also not amazing
They're
is
all like they're
disappointing.
not like neither of the Haunted Mansion movies are like the
No.
worst thing in
Yeah,
the
no.
world. They're just both not very good. And that's almost more disappointing.
I think the thing that makes it the most disappointing is that Haunted Mansion movies are very clearly trying to be Pirates of the Caribbean
Mhm.
esque in their nature, and that it's a ride, and the ride provides just a little bit of lore, and then we expand on that like in a major way in a movie. They also tried to do it with Jungle Cruise.
I mean, Jungle Cruise I think was financially successful, so
Yeah,
it has that.
yeah. If it works, but I don't think anything's gonna come close to the success of Pirates of the Caribbean. And it's just always gonna be disappointing when they turn very good Disneyland rides into very okay movies.
We just need to wait for the Big Thunder Mountain adaptation.
Like, it could happen. Like most Disneyland rides, like Space Mountain, they can make a Matterhorn movie. I would not be surprised. But if they're good, they're good. But I don't expect much from a Matterhorn or Big Thunder Mountain ride.
Yeah. Well, it's the internet, so the internet had decided that the worst sequel or adaptation this year was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania with 50% of the vote, followed by The Little Mermaid with only 28%. So Ant-Man and the Wasp was kind of a clear winner for this category.
We didn't even talk about The Little Mermaid.
No, I mean, The Little Mermaid to me is like fine, and then the longer I talk about it, all I talk about are the things I didn't like about it. But like overall, it's fine. It's not the worst live action remake.
I haven't seen a lot of those.
Now, this is another category that had a very, very clear winner. Up until this morning, it had 100% of the vote, and then just today it went down, and that is the worst real Oscar snub. The nominees were Greta Gerwig for directing Barbie, Leonardo DiCaprio for Best Actor in Killers of the Flower Moon, This Wish for Best Song in Wish, and Kevin Kiner for Best Score in Ahsoka. Kevin Kiner is not the 100% winner here.
No, no, you can very clearly tell. I wanted to shove that one in there because I really liked Kevin Kiner's score in Ahsoka.
I mean, I just like Kevin
it's also
Kiner.
yeah. Oh, Kevin Kiner, super underappreciated for his work. But also, it doesn't even count as an Oscar snub because it's a TV show, and he literally couldn't have won an Oscar for it. But we don't care. We're able to nominate him for whatever we want. Kevin Kiner for Best Director.
This Wish I thought was probably the best song in Wish, and I'm honestly kind of surprised that like the biggest Disney well, was it the biggest Disney? Yeah, the big animated Disney movie this year, main song, 100-year anniversary, not nominated at all, and I feel like that is surprising because I think it's also not nominated for Best Animated Feature. So kind of a big gap here for
Is
the
it not?
company.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think they're pushing
Um,
Elemental instead.
Yeah, that's another weird thing. Because it's not like, I mean, we all know how the Oscars works. The nominees are people, Disney pushes forward one movie as a nomination.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it was actually people liked Elemental more and nominated it than over Wish. It was very clearly a decision Disney made, which is quite strange.
Yeah, to be fair, I think Elemental was the better film. So I don't disagree with the decision, but I think it's weird in terms of like the way that you're like putting your best foot forward.
Yeah. It's like if you it's like if you're hosting a dinner and you're like, this is my great grandmother's amazing lasagna recipe. Like, it's been passed down for generations. Here's some pie I got at Walmart. Not pie you
This
got
is
at
a bag
Walmart.
of In and
But
Out.
like, yeah. It's like, it's still good food, but it's like, all right, here is this is what I want you to eat first. It's like, oh, okay. Just a little jarring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, obviously the winner was Greta Gerwig for directing Barbie with 84% of the vote.
Yeah. See, this category, it's not surprising that Greta Gerwig won as snub. but it's also like everyone here kind of was a snub. Maybe not Kevin Kiner. Most people here were a snub, like a pretty big one. Leonardo DiCaprio for Killers of the Flower Moon. I've heard he's amazing. I don't have Hulu, Prime Vid, whatever that's on. HBO,
Apple TV, I think.
Apple TV. I don't have it, so I haven't seen it. But I've heard he's amazing, and it's Leonardo DiCaprio, so he needs to be nominated.
Well, he needs to be snubbed.
He
That's
needs
how
to be
that
snubbed.
works.
Yeah.
He can only have
well,
one Oscar.
He needs to be nominated and not win.
Oh, I see. They missed the first step.
But yeah, all of these contributors were pretty big snubs this year, but one was so much more of a snub than any of the others.
Yeah, I mean, people online are also saying that like Margot Robbie is a snub for Barbie. But like, yes, I think that I wouldn't have complained if she was nominated for Best Actress. I think she did a very good job. But Greta Gerwig being the director of the biggest movie of the year, she's already an Oscar nominated director. She has not won, but she's already nominated for things like Lady Bird or Little Women. And like, it's not a bad movie. It's not like popular, but people disliked it. It's nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, it's also
for the directing too is such a big part of it.
Yeah, Barbie is also, it's a movie that needed really good directing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it could have been, it could have been a horrible dumpster fire, but it's a movie that needed someone to like guide it along a path to success, and she did that. Like, she deserves recognition, like a nomination at least. And it's not like it costs them anything to nominate her.
Right. It's like, oh no, we can only put forward Barbie as for 12 nominations. After that, people will think we're hogging airtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is just, I think it's also like the second year in the row that no women have been nominated for Best Director. Because that was our joke last year for the same category. And what won last year was any female director. So do better, Hollywood, next year. The Academy, you're on our list.
But not our nomination list.
No, not that one. The next category is another new category that you pushed for, which is Best Shot. So what singular shot from movies this year was the best? I think this category was created in response to Puss in Boots and The Last Wish, because it would have won. The nominees this year, though, were the I'm Just Ken Flash Mob, the Guardians No Sleep Till Brooklyn Fight, the Oppenheimer Bomb Test, the Loki World Tree, and Across the Spider-Verse, which we could not pick a single shot that we thought was the best. So we asked for write-in answers. Unfortunately, this guaranteed that it was not going to win.
Yeah.
Because it's just so much easier to click a button instead of click a button and write it. But we'll go over the winner, and then I'll tell you what people like, shots people liked best from Into the Spider-Verse. So the winner of the Best Shot category was the I'm Just Ken Flash Mob with 45% of the vote, followed up by both the Guardians of the Galaxy and Loki shots. Guardians of the Galaxy had 28%, and then Loki had 25%. So the race for second place was really close.
Yeah.
And then the shots that people liked the best from Across the Spider-Verse was every scene from Mumbattan, just like the design of that city. Aaron Davis punching the bag in sort of that last section that you were talking about earlier. The Now I'll Do My Own Thing, which is when he breaks the moon train.
Yeah, when he jumps off a moon train.
Yeah. And then Miles and Gwen sitting together upside down looking over New York, which is not as epic as some of the others, but just beautiful. Really beautiful.
It's a vibe.
Mm-hmm. And if I were to like add more, I would say that like the fight with the vulture in like the opening one, also like the very, very beginning, anything where in the monologue that Gwen Stacy has where she's like playing the drums. Oh my gosh, it's such a good start to the movie. I understand why I'm Just Ken won, because it was an
Yeah.
impressive sequence. Again, Greta Gerwig deserves credit for directing that sequence. And I liked it and it was fun. But to me, Across the Spider-Verse had the best cinematography this year.
Yeah. I think if Into the Spider-Verse had one really good shot that was somehow like up better than all the others, and we were able to put that in there, then I think it would have won. But the whole movie is just so beautiful that you can't choose one.
Mhm.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. Into the Spider-Verse had the one where he's falling, but he's rising.
Yeah,
Um,
like that one was definitely. I think that would have won if we did one that year. I have no idea what the other ones were, but I doubt they compare.
right. Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
this one, it was just all so good. Yeah. And we already talked about the Loki World Tree, which no one voted for, but I think was beautiful.
yeah. The thing about the World Tree is that the sequence is good, but the one shot of the tree is just like it's the climax of the sequence, but it's not particularly amazing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Also, like in terms of one shots this year, the Guardians No Sleep Till Brooklyn fight was not obviously a real one shot
no,
because there's a lot of CGI and they had to fake it, but it was a really cool fight scene.
it was. Yeah,
It was my favorite oneer and my favorite fight scene. Well, live action fight scene. The fight with the vulture is probably my favorite fight scene from this year, but
yeah.
um like it didn't win, but I do feel like we need to acknowledge that it was really good.
Perhaps we should add that category in the future.
Oh, best fight scene?
Yeah, best fight or best scene.
We can't have best
May-
shot and best scene.
no, we can because best shot is too narrow.
All right. I like best fight. Well, best stunts and best fight.
Yeah, see, we can't have both of those.
All right. This all culminates in our final category, which is the 8th Subscribers' Choice Award, which is Best Picture, but for nerds. This is another one that had write ins, which is interesting because I believe second place was a write in. And it literally made me think, oh my gosh, I can't believe we didn't actually put that on the list. But the official nominees were Loki season 2, Next Goal Wins, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Spider-Man Across the So we each picked two basically. We each picked our two favorite movies and they ended up being the nominees. So I picked Next Goal Wins, which I knew no one was going to vote for, but I did want to I wanted to put it into the universe cuz like maybe someone would be like, I don't know what that is. I'm going to watch it. It was the Taika Waititi comedy that came out this year, and it was great. And then I believe I also put Across the Spider-Verse. Not that you didn't like it, but I put it first.
Yeah, you really stole that one from me.
Mm-hmm.
My nominations for this category, I'm actually not that attached to. I mean, so because my favorite film of this year by far, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It's so good, and you stole it from me. But I believe my nominations were Mission Impossible and Loki.
Yes.
Yeah, Loki. Favorite or second favorite was my favorite show in the Oscar in the Oscar year this year. My actual favorite show in the past year has been Hotel, but we won't talk about that till next year. Um, and then Mission Impossible. It's good. It's a good movie. I mean, Mission Impossible. All the movies you can rely on Mission Impossible to come out with a solid action movie every 3 to 5 years, and it delivered. And in a category that's Best Picture for nerds or Best Picture for sci-fi action stuff that doesn't get nominated for the Oscars, it deserved a shot.
Yeah. So some of the other categories that people wrote in, or categories, some of the other nominations that people wrote in were American Fiction, Oppenheimer, and Barbie. So things that are nominated for the actual Best Picture, guys. Come on, you're misinterpreting the category. But the one that I was like, oh duh, like that was amazing, was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah, also a really good movie. I don't know how we didn't put on the list.
I know. I would. I'll personally take credit for it. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was better than Next Goal Wins. That's my fault, guys.
It was also probably better than Mission Impossible. So
Yeah. Well, so Guardians of the Galaxy was our write-in category. I think by the time I did the community post, I included it as an actual option. But it came in second with 24% of the vote. And with almost exactly double that was our big grand winner, Across the Spider-Verse, with 46% of the vote, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, it's just so good. And I can't wait for the next one. And I hate the actors, not the actors strike, but I hate that it had to happen.
We're in support of the actors' strike.
Yeah,
Just also sad about it.
because I think when Across the Spider Verse came out, wasn't didn't they release the date of the next movie as like 364 days later or
Something
something?
like that. It was like
Yeah, it
within
was
a
like
year,
it was nearly
barely.
a year later. So I've been looking forward to it for a whole year. And then just recently, I looked up the release date because I was like, "Oh, that's coming out like March, right?" No, it's not anymore. Very sad.
Yeah. It makes sense though. I really really enjoyed Across the Spider-Verse. I'm holding out a little bit of judgment cuz I don't think it's a fully complete film. We've talked about this personally as a conversation between the two of us before, but is it Beyond the Spider-Verse? Is that the name of the last one?
Yeah,
Once that I fully suspect that once I see the end of the trilogy, it'll feel like a fully complete narrative. And
yeah,
any gripe I have with the ending of Across the Spider Verse will just be like, oh, it was necessary. And a year and change of suspense is like built into it, and it's so smart. Um, and that movie is so much better than like anything else that could be compared to as its contemporary. Like I'm very afraid it's not going to win actual best animated feature at the real Oscars this year just cuz it's a sequel. And like sequels have won before, but maybe not. I'm not sure.
did Cross or Into the Spider Verse win? I think it did.
Yes, yeah, it did
Yeah,
in 2019, I think. Um yeah, so hopefully people will have seen the movie and realize that like, oh, this is a masterpiece. Um but if not, who knows?
yeah. So that's all we have today. If you would like to see the next year's Oscar ceremony, then feel free to subscribe and wait a year. If you liked this video, then do that down there.
We also have a year's
Huh?
worth of content in the meantime.
Oh yeah, this is not the only thing we do. Just saying, if you clicked on this video for Oscar ceremonies, they're really rare, but we do them once a year. I guess you could watch the previous ones if you want, but they're kind of topical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You can also follow us on Twitter at theory_central. I tweet every once in a while. That's about it.
I
Have you
don't
ever
tweet.
opened Twitter?
Nope, nope. I think it's kind of a waste because no one follows us and we don't tweet.
Yep.
You could follow us. You could prove me wrong.
You can also support us on Patreon, like the incredible David W., Alex Toquinto, and Byron Childs. You can be our fourth patron. That'd be a true honor.
Truly. You could give
Mm-hmm.
us $1 a month and make us very happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you could single-handedly like quadruple our monthly income.
Yeah, we don't make money off of this.
And let's face it, if you made it to this point in the video, you must like something about our banter, our writing, our impeccable improv skills.
Yeah, if you've somehow made it this far into the post-video banter, then
Mhm.
please consider donating on Patreon. Do you have anything else to say?
I don't think we have anything else to plug. Catch one video from Kai a year in holiday season, and then yeah, I try to post
Slightly
once
less
every
often.
month and a half. I'm not going to promise that though. But I believe that's everything that we have for you today,
So until next time, thanks for watching.
and we'll see you later. Woo! And neither of our batteries died.